Many people these days have been finding solace and comfort in, unlocking childhood memories they forgot they had, and reliving their favorite, TV shows, rewatching their favorite movies and songs. And for me and many of my colleagues at my university, we go back straight back to our Disney days.
Yeah.
And to me, that wouldn't be complete without iconic characters such as Christopher Wilde and Chad Dillon Cooper. So I want to begin the first question with what shows or movies or songs from your childhood act as your security blanket? How are you finding comfort in all this chaos?
Um, it's funny that I've really enjoyed the fact that a lot of people have gone back to the old shows that they grew up with. For me, I usually don't actually go to the shows that I grew up with. For me, like I was a Disney kid too, so like I grew up with Lizzie McGuire and even Stevens and the old Disney Channel movies like Brink and Motocrossed and that kind of stuff because I'm a bit older. Um, but for me, like usually when I'm trying to use TV or movies to kind of escape, um, typically I'm watching newer stuff. So I'm always trying to find there's such fantastic television that's happening nowadays. What with all of the different platforms that we have available to us. So I've been rewatching Peaky Blinders lately. My brother has never seen it, so we're going back through that, which has been fun to watch him watch it because the whole show is insane. Um, so I'm usually looking for new stuff, but if I have to go back to the old stuff, I usually like all of the old classic Disney animated movies. So
What's
like
your favorite?
Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King and Mulan and Hercules.
So you already mentioned that you love that people are turning to these Disney shows, but how does it make you feel, like in particular, that people are turning to your characters? How do you feel that these people are keeping your characters alive to this day? Like, are they still alive to you?
I think so. I mean, the entire reason that I got into acting was as a means of escape. And I know that doesn't probably sound like the healthiest thing in the world, and it's probably not. But there's an old quote from, I think it's like Humphrey Bogart, or it's a very prominent actor back in the 40s and the 50s, but basically he said nobody got into this business because they had a good childhood. And I think that's probably fair for most people in the entertainment industry, especially people on the acting or in front of the camera side. It's fun to play pretend and not be yourself for a little bit. So in between action and cut, my problems are no longer my problems. I don't have to worry about my mom getting mad at me for whatever, or the fight I had with my brother or my sister, or the rent, or any of the other stuff that usually comes with just living life. And I get to take on someone else's problems and be them for a little bit. So for me, acting is like my therapy. So, and I've always used TV and movies as an escape, like you were talking about. And the greatest thing I think that I get from acting is to know that I'm giving someone the ability or the opportunity to laugh when they need a good laugh or to cry when they need to cry. So it's been wonderful, and I think that in regards to the characters staying alive, my process in regards to acting is very much of tapping into different parts of myself, if that makes any sense. So I think everybody has lots of aspects to their personality, and it's just kind of playing with the ratios of anger, jealousy, or pride, or any of those things, and you kind of change the balance of it, and that kind of gives you
I'm
someone
curious
different,
to know
right?
what you
So,
consider to be the turning point in your career. Like, is there a specific moment that you felt that yes, this is it. This is where the transformation is happening.
I mean, I think the first big step was definitely the Disney show, Sunny with a Chance. Interesting story. So the when we filmed the pilot for that show, and I had finally booked a TV show. So we shot the pilot, and then everybody kind of goes away for I think 4 or 6 months or whatever it was. And then basically, I was in Texas with my family, and I got a call saying that they're picking up the show, but they're just not picking up my option.
Oh no.
So I was fired from the show. And it made total sense because they were completely changing the entire dynamic of the show. So originally I was cast to play a kid named Stuart. And Stuart was this goody two shoes from Michigan, if I remember
No,
correctly.
no, no, no.
Yeah, yeah. So, and the entire dynamic of like the characters, like Tiffany's character Tawny was totally different. Demi's character Sunny was totally different, and the entire kind of relationship dynamic was different. And they figured out after they'd seen the pilot and everything that it probably just wasn't going to work. So it made sense for them to make that change. And then through some back channel conniving Hollywood stuff, I somehow got them to write me in as a new character, and that character was Chad Dylan Cooper. So I ended up getting, lucky enough to get back on the show with all the people that I had such a great time with. And it probably worked out for the best because Chad was a much better character.
It did.
But I don't, in regards to like, transformation, I don't, I don't think I've hit it yet. I don't
Really?
know. I think, no, I mean, it's a really competitive business. It's really tough. And there's umpteen gajillion stories of child actors who, stop working. And obviously with COVID-19 and everything, there's a lot less jobs
Yeah.
happening. So I'm still auditioning. I'm still trying to get work. And it's still hard regardless of how much you've worked or how little you've worked. It's always a competition. And it being a subjective business in
Mm.
regards to art, if I could pick up the phone and get a job, I would pick up the phone, but it's just not that easy. I audition like everybody else does.
I
So.
don't know how you're staying positive because we're all going a bit crazy. So how are you? How are you staying positive? Any advice you can give us? Something.
So I was actually on a backpacking trip through Southeast Asia with my siblings when all this happened.
Oh my.
Which put an interesting spin on things. So we were in Thailand as everything started to get a little crazy. This is in February. And then we went from Thailand to Vietnam, and then Thailand kind of blew up with coronavirus. And we're like, oh, this is crazy. And kind of like running away from it. And we ended up in Bali. And then they locked the country down and they canceled our flights. And so we were stuck there for a little bit, which actually sounds a lot cooler than it was.
I can even.
Because I mean, being trapped in Bali is, seems like an ideal place to be trapped. However, once it starts getting like tough to get food and everything's closed and you're locked in a hotel and things like that, it gets a little tricky. So then I was just staying positive by, running around and trying to work out. I was with my brother and sister, so that was great.
Yeah.
And then once we got home, I've been trying to make sure that I've been running, which I hate. I hate running. I'm so bad at it. I'm the worst runner.
At least you do it.
Yeah.
I just.
I mean, it's just baby steps, I guess. So I've been focusing on trying to make better habits. So, I'm sure this is relevant for college kids, drinking less. Drinking less and eating better and working out and running. I've been playing a lot of guitar and trying to get better at that. So, I've been trying to find things that that I enjoy and maybe I'm not good at so that I can get better at it. And seeing yourself progress at something, I think, is probably the best way to cope with all of this craziness, because you kind of get to get inside your head, focus on something, and then see yourself getting better. I think that's what I've been doing.
That's awesome. So on that note, I was curious to see how would Chad Dylan Cooper, compared to Christopher Wilde, deal with this pandemic? Where are they quarantining, and what would you always find in each of their houses?
Chad is, what's funny is they both live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I think
each other,
Yeah, well, I think Christopher's down in Malibu, so he's a little drive towards the coast. I think Chad's probably more inland just because of the studios and where work is. So I think Chad has probably got a pretty nice place in the hills. He's been a successful TV actor, so he's doing okay. He's probably got a nice spot and he's hanging out there, and he's probably not following the rules of quarantine. He's
Oh,
probably
really?
inviting over people. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see him.
I think
He's
Christopher
following the
is
rules, wearing the
he's
mask.
following the he's following the rules. He's got a private beach,
Oh,
so
nice.
he probably still, I don't know what the technical laws are, but he's probably out surfing and writing a bunch of music in the studio and being very productive and living probably a much happier existence, not running around and being chased by paparazzi and things like that. So if he's just stuck at home, he's safe and he can actually get some work done.
If you could have only played either Chad or Christopher, only one, who would you have picked to play?
Um, Chad, just because it's a TV show, so I get to work for longer.
Okay.
So it's totally selfish. I get to go to work every week as opposed to, I think we shot Starstruck in, I think it was like 4 weeks, five, yeah, 4 weeks, I think. So it was like a month that I got to work. And then on the Disney show, it was, 26 weeks out of the year that I was working. And then plus we had press stuff. So just because I like being busy, I'd have to say Chad.
It
Yeah.
takes you a while to shake off a character. Like, has anything from any of the characters you've played like really stuck with you?
Um, Not really. I'm not big into the method thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I take a minute or two or whatever it is before we start, and then once they call cut, there's only been a few times that I've been in a situation or played a character who's been in a situation rather, where I really needed to kind of like process things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and those are really tough days. When you do really really violent, really cruel things are tough, because it needs to be real, or at least
Yeah.
as real as you can safely get it. And when you're experiencing those emotions for sometimes 4 to 12, 16 hours,
Yeah, they take a toll.
after a while you just kind of need to get it out. So
Yeah.
there have been several times, not many, because luckily I've done mostly comedies, so you just kind of get to go home and chill out. But there's been several times where, we were walking back from like the filming location down to base camp or whatever, and I just kind of peeled off and hid under a tree and cried for 10 minutes, like
Really?
really, really hard. Yeah, just get it out.
Get it out of your
'Cause,
system. Like, refresh.
yeah, just just process everything, like just, do that really ugly cry that, the crying that you do when you really want a mirror to go look at yourself and be like, oh my God, that kind of crying. And just, get rid of it and leave it there and try and move on. Now, the really bad thing is when you've done that and then they say there was something wrong, you need to go do it again. That's the worst.
It's like I cried
That's the
for
worst.
nothing.
Yeah. I got it out of my, like, I thought I had worked through it, and then
But no,
apparently I got to start all over again.
think again.
So that's the worst. But I've been lucky enough to do mostly comedies. So I haven't really had to deal with that a lot, but I've been there,
First
and
way to
it's
get
tough.
Sterling to smile. What's the first thing a person has to do?
Um, Dad jokes are pretty good. I usually like
Iced
dad
coffee
jokes.
versus hot coffee. What would you pick?
Depends on the season. Right now, because it's a million degrees,
Yeah.
iced coffee. But in
So
the wintertime, I want hot coffee.
so let's say I was your Starbucks barista right now. What's your order? What would you order at Starbucks?
Americano.
Americano.
I just want espresso and water.
Only?
No cream, no sugar, no nothing. Someone convinced me to start drinking coffee. I made sure that I drank it black. Um, because of the fact that I was told from a reliable source that if you can really get into coffee and develop the palate for it, there's actually more complexities in coffee than there is in wine.
Mm.
And I have found that to be true. It just took a year of grimacing at the kitchen table going,
Favorite meal to cook versus favorite meal to eat.
okay, so I've been cooking a lot, so my favorite meal to make is probably a mushroom risotto,
Oh, nice.
only because it's fairly involved. It's
Mm.
super easy, but you got to have your pot of hot broth and your mushrooms and your butter and everything and your short grain rice that you've toasted, and you just kind of you have to add the hot broth and then stir it until it's absorbed, and then you do more stirring. So it just feels very chefy. Even though anybody can do it, it's the easiest. It's like one of the easiest things in the world. So
Well,
I highly recommend if nobody has made a risotto, go make
I
the risotto.
I can make